Fala pessoal, tudo bom? Meu nome é Luiz Prisco, eu sou editor de entretenimento do Metrópoles e hoje a gente vai conversar com a Foley, uma das autoras mais vendidas no mundo. Ela é comumente apresentada como a Agatha Christie do século XXI. Ela já lançou o livro A Última Festa, que foi um grande sucesso e agora está trazendo o Apartamento em Paris. E ela vai falar um pouquinho sobre esse livro e como ela enxerga, o trabalho dela, que em breve chegará aos cinemas. Lucy, I have heard you moved to Paris to write this book. Is that true?
Well, yes and no. So I actually had the idea for the book when I was working on the previous book, The Guest List, in Paris. So I'd rented an apartment for a couple of weeks just to like get away from, all the distractions of home and life and my baby and all of that. And just to work on the draft. And I was staying in this amazingly sort of creepy old apartment. And I would hear all these strange sounds coming from the other apartments. I'd see, I spent a lot of time looking out of the window rather than working on the book. And I would see people coming and going across the courtyard and wonder about my kind of new neighbors. And that was what gave me the idea for the Paris apartment. But then when I actually came to write it, I was in the UK, in lockdown, pregnant, couldn't travel. And so I was desperate to get back to Paris. So I spent a lot of time on kind of Google and like Google Maps and Google Street View and all of that, like wishing I were in Paris. I was then lucky enough, but I had to write the book, just really trying to imagine myself there. And then I was lucky enough that summer to be able to go back to Paris. And so I had a whole kind of list of things I wanted to check off, and I just wandered around and was able to do that. But so no, I didn't manage to spend as much of the early writing time in Paris as I wanted. But perhaps that was a good thing because it was forced me to imagine Paris really vividly and then to go back and check things.
Okay. And have you loved Paris? I lived in France a long time ago, but not Paris. I live in the Campagne. Did you like Paris?
Lovely. Yeah, I mean, it's a really magical place. I was talking to a friend who'd been there the other day, and we were saying, I think if you're a Londoner, it feels almost unreal because obviously London was so badly bombed during the war, so you can see kind of all the layers of history. So you can see like, um, the very modern buildings, very old buildings, kind of all clustered together. But Paris is this like beautifully um, uh, it's all been kind of beautifully preserved throughout the years, and you just sort of feel like you've fallen into another world. I just think it's got a real magic to it, and charm, and there's a sort of sense, like with all great cities, that there are stories happening down every street, around every corner, in every apartment, and so I wanted to be a part of that.
Okay. And I want to know how you feel about being a bestseller author here in Brazil, because people here loves your book. It's a huge bestseller. And when you start to write, have you feel about write to the world audience?
It's just incredible. Yeah, I can't quite believe it. And it still feels quite surreal, I think, because I haven't actually been to Brazil. I would love to do that. I would love to come to Brazil, see my book on a bookshelf, just note for my publishers here, kind of meet readers properly. But I think the wonderful thing about kind of being online and social media and things is that you can meet those readers. You might not meet them in person, but you can still hear from them on Instagram or Facebook, on Twitter, wherever, TikTok, and have those interactions with them. And that's wonderful. And something, that's part of the real magic of being a writer for me. But I did an event in Waterstones Piccadilly in London, and I had three readers there who were Brazilian, and they came up to me and they were like, "Your books are big in Brazil." It was just amazing. So it was lovely to meet in person some Brazilian readers.
Great. And your book now are being adapted for the big screen. And do you like it? And when you write the book, you are writing thinking about adaptation for the big screen?
So I wouldn't say it's that kind of calculated, but I definitely the reason it's so exciting for me is I'm really inspired by film in my writing. So I suppose when I'm writing, it's not that I'm thinking, oh, this is going to hopefully be a film further down the road, but I'm almost seeing it, like seeing those scenes like they're playing out on a big screen in front of me. And I'm so inspired by kind of Hitchcock film. There were other films like Charade that inspired with Audrey Hepburn that inspired this book. There's a Roman Polanski film, The Tenant, which is set in a very kind of creepy Parisian apartment building, and all of those sort of fed into my writing of it. So to then know that it's sort of the other end, it might actually become a film itself, is really exciting.
And I want to know were the authors, books, or even movies, you said movies now, you feel have helped shape you as a writer?
So I always come back to, I guess, my holy trinity or unholy trinity of female kind of psychological thriller crime writers, and that would be Patricia Highsmith, Daphne du Maurier, and Agatha Christie.
I knew
and I
it!
would say, yeah, no, so all of those in kind of different ways have really influenced my writing. I'd say Patricia Highsmith, I love the way she writes bad guys. You know, I love that psychological complexity. I love that she has you sort of loving to hate the bad guys or hating to love them, you know, that sort of feeling that you have with Ripley where you sort of want him to get away with it even though he's a psychopath, and that really uncomfortable place she takes the reader to. I love Daphne du Maurier because if you think of a book like Rebecca, the setting is like a character itself in the book. You know, Manderley, the house, it's like this wonderful Gothic creation, and that's what I wanted to do with the apartment in the Paris apartment. And then Agatha Christie, I mean, I just always come back to my Agatha Christie's. I've read them multiple times. First read a lot of them when I was a child, and just really enjoyed them for the puzzle, like trying to solve the puzzle. And then I think as I grew older and read them again, I realized there's actually a lot of darkness there, you know, and kind of some social commentary and things. But I think they are just enduringly and kind of globally fascinating because of that kind of wonderful plotting, that structure. And whenever I'm having difficulty with the plot, I kind of think, what would Agatha do in this situation? And I try and tap into, you know, the spirit of Agatha.
Sometimes you are presented as a 21st century Agatha Christie. Do you feel proud about it?
Oh my goodness, extremely proud and not worthy. But yeah, very, very honored to be called that.
Okay. And I want to know what makes a thriller book being so good as yours books, and what elements couldn't miss in the stories like those?
Wow, I mean, I don't know what I suppose, you know, if I think about myself as a reader, what I want to find are I think primarily characters I really engage with. You know, plot is really, really important in crime writing, obviously, and we want it to be this beautiful puzzle, beautiful structure, almost like a kind of puzzle box. And you want as a reader to sort of be able to go back, and if you read it again, you'd be able to kind of guess, or you'd see where the clues were laid for you. And so all of that is really important. But for me, it starts with character and that engagement with character, whether they're characters you love to hate or characters that you're kind of rooting for. And so that's where I always start when I'm writing a book. I want readers to have that connection, because then they'll want to know what happens to these people. They'll be curious about the choices they make. They'll be frightened for them. They'll be rooting for them. So hopefully that's what readers engage with when they read my books.
In the Paris apartment, one of the characters is a journalist. And I'm personally a little bit curious how you see a journalist routine, and can you tell me how you see it?
Well, it's interesting. I've done a little bit of journalism myself, but not serious journalism. You know, I've written sort of some features and other pieces in the past. But I spoke to a friend who is an investigative journalist, just to learn about his process, and that was really interesting. But I think in a way there are lots of kind of similarities. As an investigative journalist, you're sort of by nature eternally, almost pathologically curious, and you know, like a writer, I think you sort of, or like a fiction writer, you sort of have a thread and you want to follow it and you want to see where that goes, and so I'm sort of fascinated by that. But I also wanted to explore with Ben this line, you know, between I guess the morality of being that sort of journalist. You know, is he sort of straying into places he shouldn't? Is he sort of pulling threads he shouldn't? Is he sort of almost preying on people? But at the same time, the story that he brings to light should come to light. You know, it's a massive scandal. But I wanted him to be a sort of uncomfortable character, if you know what I mean. I wanted the reader not to quite know how they felt about him, and also for him to be a bit of a sort of a Ripley character in a way. He sort of tells people what they want to hear, almost in order to get what he wants out of them. So it's quite sort of transactional. So I don't know how you feel about that as a journalist. But
It's okay. It's accurate. I think it's really accurate.